and welcome. So today I'd like to do something for a friend. His name is Robert Ball. He's a magician and he has his own vlog. I'm going to put his link below. Please check him out. He's a great performer. I think you'll enjoy his vlog. But he's been a follower of this vlog, my vlog, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate your comments. And a couple of weeks ago, I posted a vlog on the linking rings. And in the comments section, he asked about this particular book, The Lost Notebook of John Northern Hilliard, The Lost Notebooks. So I didn't have the book at the time, but I told him I would go ahead and get it and take a look at it. He asked me specifically what I felt the difficulty level was of this particular book. So let me answer that question right off the bat. I think this is an intermediate book. I don't think it's advanced, and it's certainly not beginner. It's not beginner because it takes a lot for granted. I'm going to hold the book up so you can see it. I'm going to flip through it a little bit. This is actually a notebook. It's exactly what it says. It's a lost notebook. The people that published this, which I believe is Genie, didn't touch it. As you can see, they didn't touch it. They didn't edit it. They didn't change anything. They didn't change the diagrams. Some of it is typed on a very poor typewriter. You can see that there are mistakes that he just kind of X'd out. And other portions of it are actually handwritten. So let me show you some of those. But the reason I think it is intermediate, the tricks that are described here are not difficult. In my opinion, they're not difficult. But Hilliard takes a lot for granted. For example, he'll describe a trick and he'll say, do the pass. Or he'll say, false shuffle. And he won't, that's it. Or he'll say, this is based on this trick, which is published in this book. And so he doesn't even describe the effect. You're supposed to know what that trick is from that particular book. So these are notebooks. I keep notebooks myself. I've been doing magic for 50 years. 50 years. It's true. I've been doing magic for 50 years. And that entire time I've kept notebooks. So I have tons of these. I have notebooks. Let me show you. Let me show you one. Hold on. This is one of my notebooks. It is literally a notebook, and it's chock full of magic. And I have several of those. And so I think most magicians do keep notebooks. What is significant about John Northern Hilliard is that he wrote this book, The Art of Magic by T. Nelson Downs. Now, he's listed in the book, if you look in the beginning here, he's listed as the editor. Edited by John Northern Hilliard. The thing is, he actually wrote it, he ghost wrote it for T. Nelson Downs. This particular edition was published in 1980, but this thing was, just barely after the turn of the century. The second edition was 1921. I think it goes back much earlier than that. But this is The Art of Magic, which is a classic. And then he wrote this tome, Greater Magic. And so, he has a reputation that these are books that are considered classics in Magic Library. And so, when his lost notebooks were found, they were treasures. Now I'm gonna share with you some things from the book. This is from the introduction. I thought it might be interesting to share. I love history, as you know. A lot of what I do here on this vlog is history. So I'm gonna read some of this, not all of it. I'm gonna read some of it because it gives you some of the background and history of John Northern Hilliard. I also read a little bit from Greater Magic so you get a sense for him. The dust jacket for Greater Magic tells the tale of John Northern Hilliard's early life. He'd been a journalist for the Chicago Press, the Chicago Herald, then the New York Telegraph, etc., etc. In 1909, so that was the year, folks. 1909, Hilliard ghost wrote The Art of Magic by T. Nelson Downs. And this book, let me share with you what he says here. The book received widespread acclaim, and deservedly so. A century later, it is still one of the finest books on magic ever written. And I agree. I think that anybody who wants to be a magician, who wants to study magic, there are certain books that he or she should read, and this is one of them. So he's written one of the great classics. Now, he joined his friend Howard Thurston's company in 1925 as the advance man. Now, what an advance man did, he went ahead of the show, and he arranged publicity, and he arranged for accommodations for the actors in the show. So that's what he did. Now, as he traveled from town to town with the Thurston show, going in advance of the show, he would meet with magicians in that town, and he would collect their favorite effects. He was in the unique position of being able to go into a place, meet with the best, because they knew Thurston folks. I know that Houdini is the great wave that drives the rest of us to the shore. Houdini is the tide that raises all ships. I get that. But at the time, Howard Thurston was the greatest magician on the planet. So when he would come to town, magicians would come out to meet with him. There was a high level of interest in the Howard Thurston show and in his advanced work. And so he was able to collect in his notebooks the very best of his time period. And it got published in this book right here, Greater Magic. I'm going to talk more about Greater Magic in a minute. So magicians freely shared their pet secrets with him. And some of, not just the local guys, but the best in the world. As I go through this book, he's got this notebook in sections. The Judas section, the Al Baker section, the Anneman section. So he's collected effects from all these people that he personally knew and that shared effects with him. The notebook, this first notebook is this volume begins with material from 1928. Sometime in 1933, Hilliard's health began to deteriorate due to his heart condition. This continued for a 2-year period until March 14, 1935, when John Northern Hilliard was found dead in his hotel room. Now, just to put this in some perspective, Tarbell began his correspondence course, I believe, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I believe it was 1926. So Hilliard dies in 1935, and he was in the process of getting this book together for publication when he passed. Let me read this paragraph. Hilliard, knowing the nature of his illness, had already made provisions for the material collected and written for Greater Magic to be turned over to Carl Jones in the event of his death so the book could be completed. This was done shortly thereafter. Jones enlisted Gene Hilliard and Harlan Tarbell. That's why I mentioned the Tarbell course, to help him complete the massive project, which eventually was published in 1938. So John Northern Hilliard passes away in 1935. He's already done the work on this book that needs to be done, but he passes away, and it's not published. So the publisher reaches out to Harlan Tarbell and says, "Hey, would you take a look at this material and see if you can pull it together?" And as I flip through this, as you flip through Greater Magic, you can see the illustrations are very Tarbell-like, very Tarbell. So Harlan Tarbell picks it up. Now, what I understand is that John Northern Hilliard would reference a trick to someone, attributing the creation of the trick to that person, when actually that person is the one who showed it to John Northern Hilliard, but not necessarily the one who created it. So Harlan Tarbell did the legwork to find out who actually created these things and referenced them appropriately when Greater Magic was published. So there are 2 notebooks contained in this one volume. Notebook 1, Notebook 2. Both of them are broken down into sections. Now, the first notebook is broken into sections by the creator, as I mentioned, Al Baker and Anneman. And the second notebook is broken into sections according to types of effects. For example, you have the Living Dead test, you have card systems, tricks with prepared packs, chapter on poker deals. So a lot of what's in here is card magic. So if you're not a card magic fan, this is not your book. Because the vast majority of there's 183 tricks in volume 1. In notebook 1, there's 106 in notebook 2 for a total of 289 tricks. 289 tricks. Now, some of them are there's maybe 5 or 6 that are Living Dead tests. There's 5 or 6 versions of the Triumph in here. So you have some duplication, not duplication in method, but duplication in effect. I would call this book, as I would call most magic books. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think you should be looking at magic books or magic DVDs or magic videos or any magical instruction, even if you purchase a trick. I don't think you should look at that and say, I'm going to do this effect exactly as it's described in the book. Dave Vernon, it was a huge advocate of watching the way your hands behave in natural life and trying to replicate as much as possible those natural movements in your performance. And the same thing holds true of anything that you pick up and try to do. It's got to be personal. It's got to come from your soul. So what I think you should do with material like this is you go through it, you read the effect, you try to visualize the effect, you read how it's done, and then you work hard on trying to improve that effect and try to make it your own. And I think that you can do that fairly easily. Now in a book like this, it's real simple. I love, one of the things I love about this book as opposed to other magic books. If I can flip through and give you, okay, look, take a look here. This is the magic square. It's a discussion on the magic square. He gives you the effect. So he describes the effect, additional effect, secret. That's the way this book is laid out. Here's the effect. Here's what the audience sees. Here's the secret. It's bare bones. I mean, it's a notebook, right? He intended to go back and flesh this out for publication in a larger book. Never did. It's notebooks. And so if you are an experienced magician, this book is going to have what I would call gems in the rough, a diamond in the rough. It's not cut. It's not polished. You're going to need to do that work with anything in this book. I personally, let's see. Let me take a look, because here's what I do. I always write in the table of contents and highlight. So he did what he called a reverse card trick. Actually, that would be Dave Vernon's Triumph. There are, let's see, 1, 2, 3 different methods for doing the Triumph, and then he does what he calls the 15 card trick. And I'm not sure why he calls it that, but I know it as Zen's Cards Across. And the original Zens, as far as I know, is in My Best by J.G. Thompson, I think. But it's one of my favorite effects. I've always wanted to do it. And I've just I never felt right about performing it. It was a staple in Denny Haney's routine. Here's basically the effect. You have a deck of cards. It's mixed. It's cut. Spectator deals off 10 cards. Spectator has 10 cards. He shows 10 cards. The 10 cards to 3 spectators. They mentally select a card each. Those 10 cards are sealed in an envelope. Another 10 cards are are dealt off. They're sealed in an envelope. One spectator holds the envelope over here. Another spectator holds the envelope over here. Magic, magic. The three selected cards, the three mentally selected cards, travel from this envelope over here to this envelope over here. I mean, it's a miracle class effect. And Hilliard thought so too, apparently, because he's wrestling with method. I'll tell you a good reference for this. Dan Harlan, in his series on Tarbell, did an entire video, I think it's like 3 hours long, on the Cards Across theme. And if you're interested in doing Cards Across, you might want to pick up that particular video from Penguin Magic. It's absolutely fantastic. But he does some pretty good stuff in here. Another effect that I love is I call it the stop card. Let me tell you about the stop card. Just for fun, I'm not going to tell you who the dealer was, but it's a dealer I respected and a dealer I admire. And I called the dealer and I said, "What's your favorite stop card trick?" And he said, "What are you talking about?" He did not know what a stop card effect was. So let me explain what a stop card effect is. And by the way, I'm telling you this because there are several stop cards in here as well. Stop card, typically what happens is one spectator chooses a card, or maybe the same spectator chooses the card that finds it. I'm not sure. It varies depending on your presentation. But let's say you have one spectator, and you have that spectator freely select a card, shuffled back into the deck. Now you say to the spectator, "I'm going to deal the cards down on the table. You call stop." That's why they call it the stop card trick. So you're dealing the cards down, spectator calls stop, you turn the card over, it's the selected card. Oh gosh. I mean, it's in the class of Zen's Cards Across as far as I'm concerned. It's a brilliant trick. I love it. There are several variations of it in here. The Cards Across theme, the stop card theme, these are classics, man. Just like the card stab. Now, I didn't find any card stabs in here, but Nate Lepsig does a card stab, and you can find it in his book. These are the classics of Magic. You take the Cards Across, the stop card, the card stab, and the rising cards are if you're going to do card magic, you should have one of those in your repertoire. Now, the vast majority of the effects in this book are cards. I'm a mentalist. I do not do a lot of card magic, if any. I might do, if I do one card effect, it's a lot. So I just don't do a lot of card magic. If you're a card magic fan, you're gonna love this, I think. Another thing that he does there's an effect in here called baffling slate trick. Now, I love bizarre magic and I love mentalism. The baffling slate trick, let me tell you about that. One slate, shown blank on both sides, cleaned, set down against your table, or on a display stand, whatever you want. Set the slate down. Go about your business. You turn the slate around and it has writing on it. Brilliant method. So that's in this book. Al Baker's billet test, which is a way of doing the Q&A. If you're a mentalist, the Q&A is the linking rings or the cups and balls. I mean, it's a standard. If you're a mentalist, you're going to do some variation of a question and answer act in your act, and he's got several different versions of it in here. So he's got a Q&A. He's got some standard stuff like a cut and restored turban, the thread trick. So he's got a lot of that stuff in here. He's got this is interesting. Banachek is credited with inventing the PK touch routine. There is a similar, not the same, not at all, but there's a routine in here called a mental test that involves very similar principles to the PK touch routine that Banachek invented decades later in this book. So there's some real gems in the book, but they're in the rough. So you're going to need to do some work here on that. Now, let me go back to talking about Hilliard for just a moment. It was 1909 that he ghostwrites this book for T. Nelson Downs, and it is considered a classic. Oh, and then he writes Greater Magic. Now, something in here I want to share with you. This is the introduction, or foreword, and it's written by Howard Thurston. This is in the Greater Magic, written by Howard Thurston. My old friend, John Northern Hilliard, asked me to write something about his new book, Greater Magic, the Golden Book of Magic. It comes as the rising sun on a drab sea of books on magic. And in the ages to come it will remain the golden glow of magical art, both as to its jeweled contents and as a magical literature. Angelo Lewis, Professor Hoffman, opened the mystic heaven to the lovers of magic. John Northern Hilliard beckoned the firmament with rare gems of mystery, which will be wooed by the lovers of the art when the days of the 20th century have become ancient history. It is the work of a rare soul gifted with a genius to perceive and recount the rarest gems of our mystical art. 7 years has John labored in garnering from the best performers their beloved secrets. His occupation as advanced publicist for our performance has brought him into contact with the greatest artists. His affable manner and beloved personality urge these artists to reveal their hitherto most guarded secrets most willingly to this master. Thus, John Northern Hilliard has been privileged to select the best magic in the world, the most effective sleights and secrets, such a pearl of great price to the lovers of the art. You will find in these pages ancient and historical facts that have never been recorded in a magic book before. You will be amazed at the numerous and hitherto little-known part of magic and magicians have played in the history of mankind. If you've been a devotee of magic, you will become a worshiper at its shrine. Whatever your specialty in magic may be, you will find scores of astonishing effects. Finally, when you have studied it, you will be conscious of owning the greatest book ever written on magic. The subtleties and misdirections, the come-ons, the simplicity of description, the unbelievable effects herein will give you new thrills in your performances and an elation of pride in your superior knowledge of the rarest mysteries which until now have been so zealously guarded. Introduction by Howard Thurston to Greater Magic. And Greater Magic, if you're a beginner to magic, is probably going to be a better book to read. This particular edition that I'm holding, I believe, was published in 1947. And Denny Haney sold it to me. It was out of his personal library before he really became a dealer. Gem. And this is the Dover edition of The Art of Magic. Also a gem. You'd be amazed at what's in these books. There's an old saying, an old adage. It goes something like this: if you want new magic, read an old book. If you want an old trick, buy a new one. Because what guys do sometimes is they'll take something out of one of these books, they'll bring something new to it, and then they'll market it as a standalone effect. But like I said, I mean, you're in a book like this, you're getting 289 tricks, and the same is true of any of these. So this is why knowledgeable magicians, when they're mentoring younger magicians, are generally telling them your best investment in magic is books, because you're getting exposed. Now again, if you're reading a book and you're saying, can I do this effect? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But what would really help you is if you said, what's the principle? What is the principle? And how can I take that principle and apply it to what I'm doing now, to my personality, to my presentations, even card magic. I said I rarely do a card trick. Some of the things that I do in my show are based on card effects that are in these books. They're not card effects when I do them, but the principles apply to other areas of magic. Again, this is why some magicians will tell their students, study card magic, study coin magic, even if you don't intend to do it, to specialize in it, because you will utilize those principles later on. Imagine having to conceal something in your hand because you need it for some purpose in mentalism. It has nothing to do with coin sleights or card sleights, but if you have practiced palming cards, palming coins, that's going to come easy to you. So there is certainly value in studying those principles. Robert, I don't know if I answered your question. I think your original question to me was, what is the difficulty level? I ranked it intermediate. I did not find anything in this book that I don't think anyone else can. I mean, there are books that I've read. For example, let me see if I have it over here. Oh, I don't. Oh, here it is. Hold on just a minute. This book right here, Expert Coin Magic by David Roth. I would say this is advanced, okay? This is what I would classify as advanced. David Roth can hold his hand out with a palmed coin inside of it, pretty much flat, and retain that coin. And some of the effects in here are based on that sleight. So he can switch coins in his palm without a clink. You know, now, I mean, the magic in here, in my opinion, is advanced. Now, if you want to put the time in to master it, you're going to have the ability to entertain any group of people with coins. I mean, if you've ever seen David Roth work, you understand what this book is. This book, Modern Coin Magic. This is the volume 2, okay, of Modern Coin Magic by Bobo. And so if you're interested in coin magic at all, you need to have this book. You need to learn it, and then you need to build from there. Before you go spending huge amounts of money on coin gaffs, do that. But I would say that anybody with a basic knowledge of magic can probably master the tricks in here. That's why I class it intermediate. The reason I rank it intermediate and not beginner is because John takes an awful lot for granted. I mean, I can't tell you the number of tricks I read in here where he said, do a false shuffle, or he said, do a force. And he didn't explain, what force or what false shuffle. Doesn't matter, because he's assuming you have this basic knowledge. So if you don't have the basic knowledge, you're going to need to go find it before you try to apply learn the effects in this book. But if you do have that basic knowledge, then all the stuff in here is going to come fairly easy to you. The question for you is going to be, the challenge is going to be, how do I take the raw material here and polish it up and put my presentation on it and bring it up to the level of actual performance art? But that's the challenge of anything. If you're reading Tarbell, Harlan Tarbell went out of his way to give you patter, but he didn't intend in giving you all the patter and all the presentation. He didn't really intend for you to do that. He gave it to you to develop in you a sense of what presentation's about, so that you can take the effect and begin to mold it into your own effect. So in that sense, at this point in my life, in my career, I would rather read a book like this than a book like the Tarbell series, because this doesn't give me the presentations. It just gives me the raw effect and the methodology, and I can do with it as I choose, which is really that's where I'm coming from. So Robert, thank you so much for asking the question. And by the way, folks, Robert asked the question in the comments section under the linking rings. I'm answering it today. And if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have special requests, please put them in the comments below or send me an email. I will address them on this vlog specifically for you. You're probably not the only one that has the question. This book is a masterpiece, and I'm sure there are other people out there that are interested in the Lost Notebooks. So hopefully they will benefit from this review as well. If you like what you see here, please subscribe. Please comment. I appreciate your comments, Robert. I appreciate you very much. You're a great performer, and I really enjoy this relationship that we have. So thank you for asking. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.